Hello and welcome to my first early impressions 5-point gameplay review for Marvel Rivals. If you're new to the series, I gauge each of these games on the merits of story, combat, environment and ambiance, graphics and visuals, and overall gameplay. The final rating being a culmination of all, with a recommendation of whether you should buy it or play it now, wait for a deal, or skip it altogether. While PvP battlers like Marvel Rivals aren't typically known for their narrative depth, this game manages to provide just enough story to add context. The premise revolves around Marvel heroes and villains combating multiverse threats to stabilize a crumbling timeline. In its debut season, Season 0, titled Doom's Rise, Dr. Doom is experimenting and investigating the mysteries of this unraveling multiverse, creating a conflict between Doom and his 2099 counterpart. The story elements manifest through seasonal arcs and in-game banter between characters, effectively integrating narrative into the gameplay. This balance of light storytelling avoids overwhelming players while tying the game to Marvel's cinematic universe. Naturally, the narrative lacks the depth of titles like The Last of Us, but I'm not really sure to whom that would be of interest anyway, except sticklers like me. It's just not a need to have typically in games like this. So for story, I scored it 2 out of 5. Okay, this is why we're jumping into a game like this. For an eternity, team battlers have struggled with a few core components of making combat correct in games like these: fluid collision, abilities, matchup, composition, encounters, timing, and of course, balance. To be upfront, I feel like NetEase have brought years of experience and research into doing all of this very well in Marvel Rivals. Combat is the heart of Rivals, it's where the game really shines, and NetEase's expertise in game balance and mechanics on display here as well. The gameplay is fluid and chaotic in the best way, with well-timed cooldowns and resource management mechanics. Despite inevitable player complaints about certain heroes being overpowered or broken, the game's balance is commendable, with no single hero dominating consistently across matches. When I'm trying to determine whether a game has combat balance or not, I look at a couple of things. Number one, is there a hero that overwhelmingly comes out on top in 1v1s? 2, is there a hero that overwhelmingly is at the top of match leaderboards? And 3, is there a hero that everyone's racing to choose at the beginning of every match? Happily, I can say that over a week of playing every single hero in the game, I've not seen any evidence of this. Additionally, I personally have been able to kill and be killed by every hero in the game, never once felt totally outgunned by any particular hero consistently. That said, there are definitely 1 or 2 heroes that I feel are a bit undertuned, but usually don't hear people complaining about that. They simply tend to not choose those heroes or choose them less, and I guarantee you NetEase is watching those analytics. From there, I'd say that the combat is generally very well balanced, while cooldown and resource management for each hero to power their abilities and ultimate abilities is really well done and crafted. In addition to great combat integration mechanics and balance, the title scripted quips, callouts, and taglines are a nice spice to pull together the experience of being behind the wheel of your favorite Marvel characters, even if the lines are a bit cheesy sometimes. A second combat layer that Marvel Rivals brings to the stage is the team-up system and tech that allows certain characters to unlock special abilities when selected on a team. For example, if Hela is teamed with Thor or Loki, it activates the Queen of Hell passive. When she scores the final hit against an enemy, she grants bonus health to Loki and or Thor, or resurrects them to the field if they're KO'd at the time. The game modes and maps are also an important consideration where one-tricking, which means choosing and maining one specific hero all the time, becomes less effective. These modes are familiar, like Convoy, where you have to escort an objective to the end of the map, Domination, where you must capture and hold an objective for a period of time, and Convergence, which is a combination of the two, where you have to first capture and then escort an objective. Because of the way the game is and heroes are balanced, some heroes and comps will be far better suited for each game mode. To add yet another element of strategy to the dynamically unfolding scenarios, players can actually choose to swap and change their heroes on the fly anytime after respawning or by returning to their team's safe zone. Simply put, Marvel Rivals best rewards those who can fill a variety of roles and counters, performing well with multiple heroes. At the very least, to be considered a high-quality player, you'd at least want to master a few heroes in each of the categories of Vanguard or Tank, Duelist or Striker, and Strategist, which is your healer and support classes. I love what they've done with the combat systems in Rivals. I commend them for striking a very evolved and tested form of balance across exciting but undoubtedly extremely difficult systems, and I look forward to the epic scale and integration of what I believe is an excellent fighting experience and a satisfying arena environment every time I jump on. So for that, I gave it a combat score of 5 out of 5. Marvel Rivals has the benefit of drawing from a well-established and redrawn fiction of this current generation of Marvel, with a creative license and freedom that is justified in the increasingly popular multiverse concept. Each environment or arena of play in the game draws from points of this. I found my main gripe was simply that I wanted more variety, but I know this will be built into the roadmap, and I'd prioritize high-quality, well-thought-out maps and environments over volume easily. The environments themselves are very immersive. It does a great job of fleshing out every corner in a game where flight is available, as in you can't just gloss over the unseeable corners, as players can effectively get anywhere. To that end, they've done a great job of controlling the flow, angles, and sightlines of these arenas without making you feel like that's what they're doing, or making you feel caged in any way. The sound in the game is very well done. Not just the environment sounds and immersion, but also the hero-generated and directional sounds. Sound plays an important part in understanding and reacting to positioning and threat in games like these, and I find it works really well in Rivals. Taking the approach to battles to another level, having to listen and consider a bit more carefully before rushing headlong into every team fight if you want to be effective. As a nice icing on the cake touch, the little dialogue lines between heroes adds to the history and immersion of the team you and your mates have built, where they are and what is happening in the seasonal storyline as the game rages on around them. Environments boast a variety of destructible objects and props, as well as structure and set pieces, which offers both epic immersion and strategic opportunities respectively. As more of a gameplay consideration, the environments are optimized very well and didn't seem to contribute to or aggravate any potential performance issues with the game, which I really had none, and I'm not playing on a baller or high-end PC. I gave a 4 out of 5 to show that I really felt the environments are near perfect, but I do or did want just a few more maps. Like I said though, I'm sure that'll come with season releases. From the first look, I loved the art direction in Marvel Rivals. It gives exactly the right amount of familiarity with vintage comic book characters, a nod to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but without feeling like a billboard for Disney and their own unique take or stylization of these heroes. The art take feels like its own brand, and yet preserves things that you'd expect to exist in the iconic nature of each one, like Wolverine's hair, Iron Man's repulsors, Hulk's tattered purple clothing accents, yet each one is slightly different in a good way. It's a 3D cel-shaded art style, which we know often translates to better hardware performance in the grand scheme of things, and I think it's the right choice for this type of title, one that'll always have its roots in traditional comic panel art. The destructible environments are very well animated, and what we trade in turn for them being predictable is a consistent way to change the actual flow and layout of the battlefield during play. So things that are destroyed and fall apart in the same way to change the landscape of the maps. I'm not sure if it belongs here, but my only gripe about the art and visual direction is that some of the newer characters I found pretty cheesy or downright weird, and sometimes that pulled me out of the immersion when they came around. I also hate that I really love some of them as heroes and how they play mechanically. While I've learned to enjoy these little things that threw me off initially, it still just feels off or not right having them in the mix. Like, for all the subtle details they've honored so expertly for well-known heroes in a beloved franchise like this, some of these new characters just hit like a brick in the face and seem to confuse the overall direction a bit. All in all, though, I love the art, visuals, and how they interact with and blend with each other. Mechanics never threaten the integrity of the visuals. I never saw a single instance of clipping, missing textures, or anything that was even remotely out of place. Whether you personally like the style choices or not, it can't be argued that it's not well done and polished. It's not about whether or not they made the choice you would make, but rather whether they've perfectly integrated the choice they made. And I think they did here. So graphics and visuals for me is a 5 out of 5. Marvel Rivals quickly turned from a game I was giving a shot to a game I couldn't wait to get back into. It does an excellent job of stylizing and presenting a unique approach to a beloved franchise, giving me everything I'd want to have and see in a Marvel hero game, incorporating vast but well-balanced team play, features and abilities with epic, connected, and fluid combat in arenas I'm thrilled to play in time and time again and destroy. As a free-to-play game, they've stuck with what I would say are socially accepted monetization channels, being costumes, sprays, collectibles, etc., and they've gated absolutely nothing mechanical behind a paywall. Even the free reward line of the Battle Pass is really great. That said, if you want to elect into the luxury Battle Pass or the paid channel of the Battle Pass, It'll cost you far less than the usual cost of games like COD, Warzone, and Apex Legends, coming in about €3 to €5 US after discounting the currency that you get back in completing the said battle pass. It's really a great game, and layering on the fact that it's free to play makes it even more of a no-brainer to try. If I have anything critical to say about it now, it's more about the quality of life options available to manage social interactions like friends list, mute block, and reporting systems in the game. Of course, you can do all these things, but it takes some searching, key binding, and recall of how to pull up and work with the menus and options to quickly mute trolls in mid-game and things like that. I think these should be readily available from the scoreboard. These should be like these single-click options, whereas they're currently in a separate UI menu. They've even somehow managed to create an algorithm that properly showcases players who perform well in matches beyond the classic last hit or most kills of these black and white stat systems that other games have seemed anchored to. 9 times out of 10, I completely agree with the MVP or most valuable players, the first place, and SVP or second place players that the game chooses to call out or highlight at the end of a match. And it's not all about one singular stat or trick. It feels valid and functional, so it includes really great credo and highlights for support players, tanks, and healer heroes. Game moderation's well done too. The community seems very low salt at current. Voice activity is recorded and moderated by game staff to ensure that abuse is at least threatened with action, enough to make a positive impact in my experience. And after playing my fair share of time in highly well-known toxic team play formats like in Valorant or League of Legends, I didn't see a single act of trolling, goading, or bullying in nearly 50 hours of play with Rivals. Outside of the actual game, NetEase has integrated what I would say is probably the coolest, most complete replay, highlight, and clip crafting platform I've ever seen. Each game crafts a bespoke highlight for you after every match, saving the last 5 of which regardless of how you perform or place in the match. Previous matches are all saved for replay with complete camera and POV or point of view control, an absolute dream for content creators and an invaluable tool for players looking to review and improve or teams looking to analyze and perfect their gameplay on a professional level. Speaking of professional gameplay, Rivals has its own integrated managed tournament platform that currently runs official league play, and I expect will extend to support third-party competitive events organically. What I've learned to expect from NetEase is not to reinvent the wheel, but perfect it with lessons learned across their own and their competitors' products, keeping what works, tweaking it to a closer form of perfection, and disposing what doesn't. I saw the same approach to their systems in Once Human, and I really respect that. Too often game companies ignore what's proven or even asked for by gaming communities, instead trying to force their version or vision down your throat. So I really struggled with how to score this, and I'll just say outright, as far as Team Arena Hero Battlers go, it's my favorite and by far the best. However, on paper and how I rate games, including story, I can't call it perfect. Though if it were just gauged as its genre, I think it may almost be. I couldn't give it less than 4.5, but my brain really wants it to be a 5. I don't think it'll ever nail the story category, but like I said, it's just not an important component in this style of game. Even so, I feel they've still tried to honor that element far better than any other title in this category. So overall gameplay, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I don't have much to add or contextualize here. Simply put, if you like PvP team hero-based battlers like Overwatch and to a lesser extent Apex Legends, then definitely fit some time into your schedule for Marvel Rivals. It's completely free to play, zero pressure or even incentive to put money into it beyond looking cool, which is a very powerful motivator. Will give you hours on return and might just become your main, if not your only battler. The variety and structure of different heroes makes the game very accessible to new players who might need more level learning curve, as well as advanced players who might like a bit more nuance in return for more functionality and complex gameplay. In that, the game naturally rewards skill based on game sense, practice, and awareness, rather than baking the mechanical advantages into the heroes themselves. If you like this short, sweet, and effective rating style, please consider giving me a subscription on the channel, a thumbs up, and share this with a friend. Help me get the word out. It takes nothing but a little bit of your time and helps me tremendously. Thank you so much. Don't be a stranger. Come back to my YouTube channel for more updates and reviews like this, as well as more Rivals content to come. Let me know how you feel about Marvel Rivals and what you would add or change in the video comments or on any of my social channels listed in the description. Thanks again. We'll see you on the battlefield. Don't work too hard.